Hi everyone, my name is Ranger Amanda, and today we're at Boyce Park and we're getting ready to go on a hike. There's a nice sign that you can see right where the trailhead begins, and there are many different trails that lead from here. Today we're going to be taking the yellow loop, which leaves from this trailhead, but there are more than just the yellow loop trails leaving from this parking lot. So I encourage you to download the Allegheny County Trails app so you can not only discover the yellow loop, but also the other trails that lead from this trailhead. Often when we go hiking, we think about walking through the forest, and for a lot of people that means the trees that are growing around us. But the forest community is much more than the trees. For instance, much of the life that makes up our forest exists on or below the ground. So if you take a moment to look around on the ground, you can really discover a whole world of life that you might not have noticed before. It's said that in healthy soil, one handful holds more organisms than there are people on the earth. So it's really incredible to think about the diverse communities that are living in the soil when we often think of it as dirty or gross or kind of icky, and often it can be really wet and muddy in our area, but that bacteria and the dirt particles and the air and the water that comprises our soil supports all of these trees and plants that are growing around us. So if you take a moment to look on the ground when you're walking, you can often pull up the leaves that are scattered along the ground and find lots of little insects and other invertebrates, or animals that don't have bones, crawling around and living their lives. For instance, if I pull back the leaves just in this small area, I found a snail and some ants crawling around. You can also find things like worms and what I like to call roly-polies or pill bugs, just crawling around. They're really important for our forest health because they help break down things like leaves and decaying wood, and that gives nutrients back to the soil. So the things that we enjoy to see that make our forest beautiful, like flowers, trees, and other plants, can have those nutrients to grow strong and healthy. This time of year, our forests are vibrant and green when everything's growing again. So it's easy to overlook some of the diverse species that we have growing in our forests. One of my favorites is a spring ephemeral wildflower, which means it's a wildflower that grows in the springtime, but doesn't last very long. So by the time it's summertime and more wildflowers are blooming, this one is already gone. And it's hard to see because it's covered by its big green umbrella-like leaves, and it only has one flower. This plant is called mayapple, and although the shoots and the leaves start growing in late April, it gets its flower, a single white flower, usually around May, and by June, that flower, if it's pollinated, forms a tiny green apple. Now, just like you and your community play an important role in helping your neighbors and keeping your neighborhood safe, this plant also plays an important role in helping its neighbors and fellow forest community members. So that small fruit, that small apple that grows from the mayapple plant helps feed box turtles, raccoons, black bears, and opossums. So it's a really great food source at a time when there isn't a lot of other fruit growing. This plant is also an important pollinator plant for early pollinators like early bees, flies, and beetles. It has a really sweet smelling flower that attracts insects, and then it spreads its colonies through the seeds that it produces, but also through rhizomes, which are giant root-like structures, kind of like a potato or a carrot. sometimes when you're hiking, you might notice that there are these colored patches on some of our trees. And these are here to help you when you're exploring the forest community around you. These are what we call trail blazes, and they help let you know that you're still on the right path. This trail blaze is telling us that we're on the yellow with blue dot trail. And in Boyce Park, there are a lot of different trails, so these can be useful in determining which way to go. A single trail blaze like this one means continue straight ahead and you'll stay on the same trail you're wanting to hike on. If you would see a trail blaze like this and then another one up top off to the left, that means the trail blaze turns left. And the same thing if you saw a trail blaze with another one off to the right, that would mean the trail turns right. Sometimes you might see a trail blaze of one color and then another trail blaze directly above it in a different color. And that means two paths followed the same path on the ground at the same time. So these colors that you see on our trees correspond to the same colors on our trail maps in our trail app, so you can easily find where you are and decide which direction you want to go next. Often when we're hiking, we see a lot of plants and probably a lot of insects, especially during the summer days. But an important member of our forest community that we don't often see is a lot of our wildlife. And that can be either because they are active at different times of the day than we are, or because they're just being active on a different part of our forest. One of my favorites is the red-tailed hawk, and you can see them flying and gliding in the sky almost all year. And especially I've been noticing this time during the spring that I see a lot of them out looking for mates and starting to hunt for their food that they eat. I've introduced you to a lot of members of our forest community, including plants, wildflowers, and wildlife that you can see when you're on a hike in Boyce Park, or really in any of the 9 Allegheny County parks, and really any park in Pennsylvania. One thing you might not think about is that you are also part of this forest community. So just like each animal and each plant plays a vital role in keeping the forest community balanced and healthy, so do you. So when you come out to visit our parks or any park in your neighborhood, be mindful that you are part of the community, and it's also your responsibility to help keep it pristine and beautiful and healthy for those plants and for that wildlife. So I encourage you to not only come explore the forest community at Boyce Park, but also explore the communities around where you live, the all 9 Allegheny County parks, and be out there willing to meet the neighbors that live in your forest communities.